All right, you're
But
good to go.
by the way, my house has been like loud for some reason the past hour. So if anything happens, we'll just briefly pause and then I don't know. But
All
just
right,
giving you the
sounds good.
warning now.
All right.
What episode are we on? 22. Welcome to the Eephus, episode 22. I'm Justin Ledger. I'm joined by Zach Hummel. Zach, this has been an action-packed week in baseball. We actually had too many topics, so we had to kind of narrow it down. It kind of goes off of what Carabas said last week when we had him on, when he said, having one baseball podcast a week during the regular season isn't enough because we have a lot of shit to talk about today.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like almost every night in MLB there's one huge story that comes out of it. So, I mean, if you add that up, yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Things are starting to heat up. Teams are starting to make their runs or drop back, and we're really seeing who's going to be competing for these, playoff spots for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, for example, we had Trey Turner. He hit that cycle at Coors Field. Of course, it was at Coors Field. He hit that cycle not too long after Will Myers hit his, and it was almost the same exact situation where it happened like a day after we recorded. Might have even been the night that we did record. So Trey Turner hit for the cycle, and he he almost hit for the cycle again the game after that. So Trey Turner already kind of showing us that he's going to be one of the better young talents, better young shortstops in this game for a long time. I'm excited to watch him. The Nationals in general, which we'll get to soon, got a lot of guys in there that are fun to watch.
Yeah, if you're gonna go for the cycle, I mean, you circle when you're playing at Coors Field
Exactly.
on your schedule because that's just a cycle ballpark. I actually had him on my fantasy bench for the cycle. So
I saw that. That's terrible.
I mean, I I was shattered when I woke up and saw that he hit for the cycle. It was just, I mean, he had 22 fantasy points, but enough about fantasy baseball. I mean, this guy needs to be considered one of the best shortstops, upcoming shortstops in MLB. I mean, he can hit for average. He's got a little bit of pop, and his defense is A plus, outstanding.
Yeah, you got to throw him in the mix with guys like Correa, Seager, your boy Trevor Story, who I guess Trevor Story's power is coming, but still hitting like 140. But that's a topic for a different day. But those young shortstops who are just kind of bursting on the scene, Frankie Lindor. You got to throw Trey Turner in that mix. Trey Turner, I feel like he's one of those guys. He's kind of overshadowed because you have obviously Bryce Harper. You got Ryan Zimmerman tearing it up on the Nats. You got Daniel Murphy on that team. You got a lot of studs there, and Trey Turner is just kind of thrown into the mix. I think we're going to be talking a lot more about Trey Turner as the season goes on.
Yeah, he's a likable player. He almost reminds me of Jeter in the way he hustles on every play. Like, he never takes a play off, which I would love to have a guy like that on the Red Sox any day of the week.
Yeah, for sure. And Trey Turner, if you're going to name a player that's going to hit for the cycle, that's the kind of guy you're going to think about because he has so much speed, but he also has pop that kind of goes under the radar. So Trey Turner can kind of do it all. He's a 5'2" guy. He actually plays the outfield as well. He was an outfielder before he shifted back to his original position, shortstop. So definitely a fun player to watch. As I mentioned, the Nationals just tearing it up right now. Anthony Rendon went 6 for 6. I think it was it 2 nights ago? 6 for 6 with 3 home runs and 10 RBI. That's a stat that, like, you see that when you play rookie mode in MLB The Show. You don't see that in real life. So when I saw, I didn't actually watch the game, but I saw one of those graphics. So I think it might have been ESPN. It was just 6 for 6, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, Anthony Rendon, and I was in shock. So that's one of those moments that I think that's even more impressive than the cycle. 3 home runs, 10 RBI is a huge feat.
Especially for a guy like Rendon, who's like not known as like a super like power guy. But it was actually yesterday during the day when the Nationals took down the Mets 23-5, which is like, I know that's only one loss, but it probably feels like 4 or 5 for the Mets just because you got Rendon going, 3 home runs, 10 RBIs, and you have, if someone puts up a 23 spot on you, I mean, that hits you for a week. Like that could really, leave some marks.
That's a tough look for sure. And as for Anthony Rendon, he's been one of the better third basemen in this league when healthy for a couple years now. But as I said about Trey Turner, he kind of flies under the radar a little bit because he's on such a stacked roster. If you didn't know who Anthony Rendon was before, you definitely do now because he put himself on the map big time. Anytime you go 6 for 6, that's going to happen. Never mind the 3 home runs.
Yeah, I totally agree. That Nats team has so many big names and big stars, especially on the pitching staff too, that some of these second-tier guys get sort of looked over, but they shouldn't be with the numbers they're putting up. They're sort of carrying the Nats right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And another guy who was sort of carrying the Nats was Adam Eaton. The kind of one bad piece of news coming out of Washington this past week was Adam Eaton out for the year, torn ACL. I believe ACL, meniscus, and a high ankle sprain. If I might be incorrect on that, but I read that from a tweet. I know for a fact he has a torn ACL, but I also read the meniscus and the ankle sprain just to top it off. This sucks. Adam Eaton is one of the better players in baseball to watch, one of the better outfielders in the game. Does it all. Outstanding defensive player, and he was hitting 300, I believe, with a couple homers and really contributing to this Nationals offense as well. He was a key player that they acquired this offseason, and one of the main reasons I picked them to win the World Series this season. But unfortunately, he's going to be out for the entire year, and it's kind of sad to see.
I'm gonna have a weird take here. I fucking hate Adam Eaton, so
Really?
I was glad that he got injured. I think he's such a little rat. Like he's done nothing to do that to me, but I just hate his swing. Like I don't know how he hits for power. Like he just has this like almost a backyard baseball like just little level swing. I hate it. He's just this little Mighty Mouse guy. I don't know why. I shouldn't wish injury upon anyone, but I saw the Eaton injury, and I was almost like, yep, that's karma coming back to bite you.
He's like another Hunter Pence for you. Just another dud who's actually pretty good, but he's just a dud.
Yeah, exactly. He's a great player. I just don't like him. So I don't know how I feel about him getting injured. I guess good riddance, but I obviously don't want to see anyone, tear their ACL and be out for the season.
Yeah, when he was on the White Sox a couple years back, it was kind of when he first started making a name for himself. And I had him on my fantasy baseball team. I'm like, this guy sucks. He's not a guy who's going to really produce via fantasy baseball, maybe a little bit, but he's more of just that all-around player who just does things behind the scenes, like to contribute, but isn't just like the star of the show. So when he was on my fantasy baseball,
he's like Shane Victorino. He's like Shane Victorino.
That's a good analogy. Yeah. He's that guy who, he was on my fantasy. I was like, he's not doing anything. What is all the hype about with this guy? But then once you start looking further into the stats, defensive WAR, and all that good stuff, then you start seeing, okay, he's one of the better players in the game. So that's unfortunate for the Nationals. Apparently not unfortunate for you, but that's because you got beef with Adam Eaton. So,
yep.
And not more unfortunate news in the NL East. Noah Syndergaard, probably the biggest story of this past week, is Noah Syndergaard. It started out with reports that he had dead arm, which I've had before.
What does that even mean, though? Like a dead arm?
I want to say, in my mind, when I see dead arm, I think tennis elbow, with that feeling when you just simply you can't throw. Yeah,
it's like numb almost. It's like
but I don't know if they're the same thing. But that's at least what I think.
It's a buzzword.
So it started off. He had reports of dead arm. Never a good thing to hear if you're a Mets fan. But then it turned into him refusing an MRI and going out there Sunday to pitch against the Nationals. Next thing you know, he's getting wrecked in the first inning and gets taken out of the game, gets an MRI, and it reveals that he has a partially torn lat, which sounds extremely painful. Now he's on the disabled list. So Noah Syndergaard, not the greatest look for a guy who's supposed to be a leader and the ace of the staff. And the Mets in general are just going downhill big time right now.
Yeah, funny. I actually had the same injury Syndergaard had. So a little doctor talk here. I heard it lifting. I heard it lifting and I didn't really realize it. I was like, it hurts. Probably just like Syndergaard did. It hurt a little bit. He's like, all right, I'm a tough guy. I'm going to go out and pitch. I don't care what the Mets said. By the way, the Mets handled this terribly. They shouldn't be listening to the player. They should be listening to the training staff and the doctors. If they say he can't pitch, he go on the 15-day DL. Get yourself ready. They need him healthy. He's their ace. But yeah, it's one of those things. Like I tore my lat, and then I kept doing like lifting and yard work and stuff, and it made it even worse. Like to the point where I couldn't lift my arm over my head. So I like really fear that Syndergaard is going to be out for a long time with this because it's still lingering for me, and it happened 2 years ago. So I can only imagine what it's like for him when he's actually going to have to use it to pitch when he comes back. So bad news
Who do
for
you
the
think?
Mets.
Who do you think is at fault here? Do you think it's more Syndergaard, or do you think it's the Mets organization as a whole?
I think it's the Mets just because, you know, Syndergaard's one of these gamer guys. Like he wants to take the ball every fifth day, no matter what pain he's feeling. But the Mets have to be the bearer of, you know, bad news to Syndergaard, saying, you know what, we got to shut you down. You're too important to us. That's what the good teams do. That's what the good managers do. And it seems like the Mets don't have either of those facets in place right now because, I mean, Syndergaard is their number one pitcher when he's on, and they just lost him for probably a couple months now. So you might want to console the Mets right now if they don't have Syndergaard.
Right. I couldn't agree more. I mean, he was throwing 100 in the first inning, so it seemed like at first nothing was wrong. Maybe he was struggling a little bit, whatever, some pressure on him. But then it turned out, I mean, when he started, I mean, people can't see me right now, but when he started doing this, like kind of that sort of motion and just like holding his lat, that's a bad sign. And if you're a Mets fan, I think the panic button, you've officially pressed it a million times by now. They're in last place, so when you're in last place behind the Phillies and the Braves in that division, you're hitting the panic button. Injuries or not, you're hitting the panic button hard. Lastly, in injury news, Yoenis Cespedes has had that we talked last week about how a hamstring injury, it's going to nag you throughout the year. He returned from it briefly and then re-injured the hamstring in the past week, so we have to bring it back up again. I mean, Cespedes and Syndergaard are the two guys you can't lose if you're the Mets. So keep an eye on this hamstring injury with Yoenis Cespedes. We don't need to get too far into it. I think he's supposed to return tomorrow. Not 100% sure about that, but he's supposed to return soon. So, I mean, hopefully the Mets aren't rushing him back too.
Yeah, the Mets training staff needs to be evaluated. I think Terry Collins came out and said the other day that they need to keep players hydrated and stretched more. I mean, what is a training staff's job other than that? Like, these players should be hydrated and ready to go. It reminds me of almost I'm forgetting whether it was the Red Sox or Patriots where their training staff they had a rash of injuries and the training staff started actually taking some heat because they weren't rehabbing these guys correctly, or they weren't looking at getting a guy an MRI when he has a little bit of discomfort to cut out longer term injuries. So I think the Mets literally have to fire their whole training staff before they do anything else because there's so many injuries just stacking on top of each other, and it's their top guys. It's not like a backup catcher. It's literally their top A+ players.
I was going to bring up all the players who, I mean, I did last week, but I think there's more now. All the players who are hurt on that team, and I decided I like basically crumpled up a piece of paper and said, screw it, I'm not even going to bother because there's just so many. I believe Steven Matz and Seth Lugo are now on that list, so sucks to be a Mets fan right now. We'll leave it at that. I guess one positive, if you're a Mets fan, is Tim Tebow heating up at the plate down in Single A for the Columbia Fireflies. He topped out at 246. He's batting 237 right now, but in the past week, at one point, he was hitting 246. I know that doesn't sound high, but it is high for Tim Tebow, who hit, I believe, 140 or 190 or something in the Arizona Fall League. So we're seeing him improve a little bit. We said that we might not be talking about him for a while because there haven't been any Catholic holidays or anything like that. But Tebow, he's staying relevant. He has 11 hits in his past 31 at-bats. Through 84 plate appearances in 21 games. He's second on the team with 2 home runs. He's third in total bases, and he's fifth in RBIs. I'm not going to say Tebow's a future major leaguer, but he might be onto something here.
I think the next question is, when does he get the call up to Double-A? Like, it has to be
right. I mean, you got to start looking at that too, because if they're smart by like merchandising standards and all that, they'll do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, they're selling Tebow merch with the Columbia Fireflies, and then they'll start selling merch for, I think it's the Binghamton Mets, who's a Double-A for the Mets organization. But if you just I just looked at Tebow's page on minorleaguebaseballplayer.com, and his image, his Columbia Fireflies image, is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It's literally just him.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all.
It's like him leaning forward like a classic school pitcher. He looks so happy to be a part of it. And like classic Tebow, like he was probably his parents were on some like Catholic mission someplace, and his birthplace is Makati, Philippines. So it's just like it doesn't get more Tim Tebow than that.
Right. Yeah, you know what? I just thought of this now. The Mets need to bring him up now. Cause a distraction. You know, you have a lot of shit going on there with Syndergaard, injuries, you know, firing the entire training staff. Promote Tim Tebow now. Take a little attention off. No better time than now while he's tearing it up in single A. Just make it happen. Take a little attention off of everything negative that's happening with the Major League Ball Club.
Or just have him come up and heal your players. Like wasn't there a story where he was healing people? Like he had like qualities. So why doesn't he just pray to Syndergaard's arm and Cespedes' hamstring? It seems like better idea than what the Mets are doing.
To be honest, that seems like common sense now that you mentioned that. And FoxSports.com actually posted a very, very interesting article today. You know, it talks about Tim Tebow's success in low A. And it talks about, I mean, his numbers aren't staggering by any means, but they're standard numbers. And there's a lot of people who are in the major leagues right now who had similar numbers through the amount of games that he's played in. I'm going to list them off for you. So these players all had similar stints in single A as Tebow. Carlos Beltran, you may have heard of him. Pretty successful career. Jock Peterson, he's all right. Sal Perez, Josh Donaldson, Mark Trumbo, who honestly, Tebow reminds me of like a Mark Trumbo, like a poor man's Mark Trumbo. Eduardo Nunez, who, I mean, he was good for like a half of a season. Joey Votto. The list, there's a few more guys, but that kind of puts it in perspective a little bit. Mike Napoli. You never know what to expect in baseball. It's such a weird sport. I hope Tebow does get brought up to Double-A so we can see him against even better competition and see if he can hit 250 with a few home runs, because that can get you a long way. I mean, home runs, they're not as valued as they once were. Power isn't valued as much as guys who are going to get on base nowadays. But if Tebow continues to improve, things could get a little interesting.
Yeah, the only thing kind of fighting against Tebow is he's turning 30 in August. So it's like, how much time does he really have? I mean, he's already 30 years old, so he has to make or break. So he better start juicing now if he wants to get to the major leagues.
Yeah, for sure. I still personally don't think the major leagues is ever going to happen. But if there's ever been a time where there's been hope that it actually could, it's right now with the way he's kind of performed in single A so far. Again, the numbers aren't staggering, but by Tim Tebow standards, they are. A guy with staggering numbers right now is Eric Thames. We've been talking about him a lot in the past few weeks. So staggering, in fact, that he's been tested 3 times for PEDs in the past 10 days. Last week, we talked a bit about how he was tested. He was tested a couple more times since then. He pretty much said, "I have plenty of blood in urine, so test me all you want." Jesus Christ.
What was that?
My cats are just like, my mom has 2 cats and they're going fucking nuts.
I couldn't even hear it.
Yeah, no. Give me like 1 second. I just don't want it to be like loud. No, I think we're good. All right. So anyways, he has 11 home runs. He's hitting 345 right now. His OPS is unbelievable. It's 1,000. I don't even know when it gets to this number. I don't even know how to like say it. 1.276. Yeah, it's just decimals. So he's tearing the cover off the ball right now. I would say, I mean, maybe he's slowing down a little bit. Most of his home runs are against the Cincinnati Reds too. So you kind of got to leave it. I mean, the Cincinnati Reds don't really have guys that they're trotting out there, shutting guys down. So when Eric Thames starts doing this against teams, I mean, he did do it against the Cubs, albeit it was against John Lackey. But when he starts doing it against teams regularly, like competitive teams, sorry, I don't consider your Cincinnati Reds very competitive, but but like when he starts doing it throughout the entire season, you know, that'll be something to write home about. I love Eric Thames. I guess what I'm saying is I just have a hard time believing that he's going to be hitting 340 with 40 home runs this year. I think that average is going to dip significantly. That being said, I think the power is obviously there. So the home run numbers will be as well.
Yeah, if you want to talk about a comparison for Tebow, I mean, Eric Thames is 30. He's come back to the major leagues. He has a similar swing to Tebow, and they're both like power home run guys. So Tebow can use him as like an example of a guy that's done it. I
Right.
think the funniest thing to come out with this Thames story is when he was over in Korea and he fake charged the mound and the pitcher like almost peed
Oh
his
yeah.
pants. That was the
Oh yeah.
funniest. I think it's on the Eephus Twitter.
It is.
I mean, that was one of the funniest things I've seen in baseball. More people should do that because everyone
I
had a
don't know
laugh about
what's
it
up with
afterwards.
like lately. There's been a lot of clips just coming out of Korea, like that one, and then you got the Manny Ramirez one, where I mean that's the best home run call I've ever heard in my life. You can check that one out on the Eephus Twitter as well. But yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. Eric Thames is an example that kind of anything can happen in baseball. I love a story like Eric Thames. I hope he does it year round because what he's done has been extremely impressive.
Yeah, even if it's just a 1 year thing. I mean, it's great. It's
Yeah.
a great story for baseball. So I hope more guys, maybe if they can't fit it in like AAA, AA, go over to Korea, kind of work on their game because I'm sure they have great coaches over there as well because all their players are really fundamentally sound. Then come back to the U.S., ready to play, ready to really make an impact.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he does it throughout the entire year. Speaking of the entire year, we're a month through right now. That seemed like a long month. April seemed like it took a little while to. I don't know about you. I don't know if it went by fast, but I felt like it went by a little slow. It's officially May 1st as of today, as of this recording. So what we're gonna do a month in, we have some over unders. So just things that we think by the end of the year, we're gonna give each other stats or numbers, whatever you want to call it, and we're gonna each decide whether it's gonna be over or under. I'll give you yours first. So
Okay.
my first over under 95.5 wins for the Nationals.
95 wins for the Nationals. They have 17 right now through the first month of the season. I'd say over at this point, pending
Okay.
injuries. I like them in that 100 to 105 range, the way they've been playing. And their division is worse than I think everyone thought at the outset. I mean, the Mets suck. Miami's not good. Philadelphia's not good. Atlanta is not good either. So I think
Right.
they'll just rack up wins midseason.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Now that we see the Mets aren't going to be the competition, or they shouldn't be anyways, the competition that they expected them to be against the Nationals this year. I think they're going to cruise above 95 wins. Speaking of Eric Thames, 41 and a half home runs over under.
Eric Thames, over. I had that as well. I said over 50. I think he's gonna have over 50.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go under. I think he slows down a little bit. I think he'll get around the 38, 39 range. What else do we got here? 214 innings pitched for Chris Sale.
I want to say over, but I'm gonna go under just because I think he'll something. I just think he'll miss a couple starts this year
He's only
for
had
an injury.
he's only had 2 years where he's gone over 214. It was
Yeah.
last season. I think he had 226, and then a few years ago for the White Sox, he had exactly 214.
Yeah, under.
Bryce Harper, 280 batting average.
Bryce Harper. I'm gonna say over by like 3 or 4 points. I think he's like 283. I think he's
Okay.
he's
I think
seeing more
last year he
pitches
only
this
hit
year.
250.
Yeah, I think he's every year he's getting better plate discipline. So I'm gonna say he goes over that, and his lineup is stacked, so it gives him more
Yeah,
protection.
that's true. That's true. All right. Lastly, 54 and a half saves for Greg Holland.
Ooh, have him on my fantasy team, so I'm gonna say over. I
All
I
right. I
mean
like it.
the saves are like the Rockies have to play those kinds of games though. Like I feel like they either blow teams out or that they play really close games. There's no in between with them. So
Yeah.
I think any game that they win really close, Holland has to get a save for him to get over that number for sure.
So you think he'll sustain this kind of success that he's shown all year? You don't
Yeah,
think it's a little fluky?
no, I think it's more that the Rockies have to be in those type of games more than Holland. I think Holland will shut it. I mean, I've watched a lot of Rockies games this year. His slider is like ridiculous. He pulls it out of his glove and like leans back, and like no one can even hit it. It hits the dirt, and people are swinging at it. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's been really fun to watch as well.
All right, so for mine, I have a lot of like over unders wins.
Okay.
I have Twins. What do you think about the Twins over 78 wins?
Ooh,
They started the
78.
season kind of hot.
78. That's tricky because the Twins are that type of team. You really don't know what to expect. I'm going to go under there. I'm not really a believer in the Twins yet. I think Irvin Santana is going to slow down a little bit. He's kind of been the biggest story of that team so far. I think his ERA is under 1, which is insane. I think he's going to come back to earth. I mean, he was good last year, too. He wasn't I think his ERA is 0.77. He wasn't that good last year, and I think he'll kind of regress to being that 3.30 ERA guy, which obviously means that the Twins in general aren't going to sustain the same kind of success we've seen so far.
All right, how about Aaron Judge over 43 home runs this year? The Yankees rookie.
Shit, he has 10 right now. 10 in April. I don't think he keeps that pace up all. He has so much power. 43, you said?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a good number. I'll go over. I'll give him 44.
Yeah, I think he'll be in that range as well. Just because I think he'll have some multi-homer game. I mean, once it gets hot in the Yankee Stadium, he's hitting them out. Like he hit one over the weekend, opposite field over the bullpen and right field. I was like, holy shit, this guy's got.
He has so much power. I mean, it makes sense. The guy's humongous. But
all right, how about Rockies? 86 wins. This is
86.
That's right at that line, right at that playoff line. Usually 86.
Let me think for a sec. 86 wins. Fuck it. I'll go over. It's the goddamn Rockies. I love the Rockies. I'll go over there.
Yeah.
I think this is the year.
I'm going to go over too. I think this is their year. I think they get to 90, which would be unbelievable for them.
Ian Desmond's back. They were already playing well, and now Desmond's back. So, I'll go over.
Yeah, they've been winning close games, which has been great. How about Blue Jays over 80 wins? They started the season really bad, like worse than everyone thought.
Under 80 wins. Okay. I think they might even finish in the cellar. I think the Rays. I think I like the Rays to finish ahead of the Blue Jays. Looking through 1 month, I think I like them finishing ahead of the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays. Aaron Sanchez is out again. I think he just got put back on the DL after he just came back. I think he has like a split fingernail. I think it's just that kind of season for the Blue Jays this year.
All right, my last one is Ryan Zimmerman hits over 350 for the season. He's hitting 420 something right now, which is honestly ridiculous. But
under. I think the Ryan Zimmerman story so far has been awesome. I have to go under. 350 is insane. So I think he'll hit around like 320, 325, but maybe even compete for an NL MVP if he keeps this up. But yeah, that 350 mark's very hard, especially when you're Ryan Zimmerman and you're not really. I mean, the past couple seasons he hasn't been really anything to write home about. So. It's just weird to me that Ryan Zimmerman is at the front of the pack probably in the MVP race right now. I think he'll kind of start regressing a little bit as the season goes on. But I still think he's going to finish with some really eye-opening stats at the end of the year. I just think 350 is insane.
Do you think we ever see anyone get near 400 in the future?
No.
I don't think anyone has a shot now.
No, it's just a different game now. The pitching is way better than it was when Ted Williams did it.
It's specialized too. Like you have lefty specialists coming out of the bullpen just to get one out, which is ridiculous.
Exactly. I mean, there will be plenty more 350s probably, but I think once you start getting in that range, I mean, getting 400 is so difficult.
Yeah. So that was all my over-unders. So
all right. Yeah, I like that. I think that's something that we can start doing at the end of each month, at least for the first half of the season. It's kind of fun to kind of guess where we're going to end up comes the end of September. So we'll move on to, we had the Red Sox-Yankees series. Of course, the first game got postponed, but the last two, I thought the games were kind of, blah. There was a lot of talk going into those that series that the rivalry's dead. It's clearly dead. I don't think that's up for debate. The rivalry's clearly dead. But we could be seeing a rivalry sort of starting right now, and that's the Red Sox versus the Orioles. Obviously, they've been division rivals technically for a while. But now, we talked about it before, this whole Machado-Pedroia deal, Matt Barnes throwing at Machado's head, could be starting a new rivalry. They're playing as we speak in Game 1. I don't think there's been fireworks yet. Do you expect there to be some fireworks in the series?
No, I guess I watched the first inning of the telecast, and they were saying that everyone came out and said that everything is squashed. Like even Zach Britton came out and apologized. So I don't think we'll see anything. Weirder things have happened, though. It will just take one pitch up and in to start, oh, you threw out our teammate again. Like that. I mean, everyone's so petty that could start up pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think when it happened, everyone got so hyped up that people were saying, oh, it's definitely going to carry over. It's definitely going to carry over. I think even we said that it's probably going to carry over. I think time has passed, and I think cooler heads are going to prevail. Now, I completely agree with what you just said. One pitch that goes a little bit too inside, the fireworks can start back up. But before the game, Machado, and I don't know if it was Eduardo Rodriguez, they were just like kind of just talking, shooting the shit, and Machado was giving a little cup check to him, and like they were just being buddy. So it might not have been Erod, but it was someone on the Red Sox. It was just hanging out with Machado, being buddy with them. So I don't think anything's going to happen. I think they squashed it. I believe Machado mentioned that he texted Pedroia and kind of smooth things over with him. So I don't think we're going to be seeing anything crazy happen in this series.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think cooler heads will prevail. But yeah, the first Yankees-Red Sox series didn't really have any fracture points. There wasn't any really hot moments when there was, someone threw at someone or someone made a hard slide in the second. It was pretty low-key for Yankees-Red Sox, I'd say.
I think the only thing that I took away from the Red Sox-Yankees series is if the rivalry ever does heat up again, Aaron Judge is going to be such a villain. I just got that vibe from him. He's just this huge dude who mashes on the Yankees, and those guys typically don't sit well with Boston fans. But since the rivalry's dead, I love watching Aaron Judge. As long as he's not doing it against the Red Sox, I didn't really enjoy that much, but I actually really like Aaron Judge as a player.
Yeah, you got Aaron Judge, and you got Aaron Judge on that side, is like this big Paul Bunyan guy, and then you got Benintendi with the young guys with the Red Sox, who's like a cool bro with long hair. So those guys will go back and forth for like the next 10 years, hopefully. So hopefully something starts back up with those two.
Yeah, and they're going to battle it out for Rookie of the Year this season for sure. Now, talking about matchups like that, I wanted to just briefly talk about our personal favorite matchups to watch in baseball. I got like a tiny little list here of matchups that if they're on, I'm tuning in 10 times out of 10. I believe you did the same thing. So if you want to give yours first, and then we'll go from there. Yeah, and I'll tell you if you have anything that I have, I'll just say I have as well.
Yeah, I think they played over the weekend. It was Rockies D-backs, especially this year.
I have that.
Yeah, yep. Just because they always play like 10 to 11 games. The pitching's dog shit, and everyone's just going yabo. So it's like that's a great series to watch just because you're going to see runs, you're going to see fireworks. There's usually a walk-off. That's always a great series. I'll circle. Mets Nationals. I
have that too.
I have the Mets here in Connecticut are on TV. So if the Red Sox game's boring, I'll go over to the Mets, and they're usually putrid. So I just see the Nationals kick the shit out of them. So that's always a great series to watch as well. This is a weird one. It's kind of cross-divisional. I think there's a history between these two teams, but I can't really think of it. The Astros versus Kansas City. I just feel both of them have a lot of douchebags on their team. Like a lot of hardos, like Moustakas, Hosmer, a couple other guys in the Astros. You have Altuve, who's a rat. You got Springer, who's all over the place. So I think whenever those two teams, I'll keep an eye on it because I think there'll be fireworks. And then obviously the two teams that have met in the AL playoffs and there was fireworks last year is Texas versus Toronto. Yes. I mean, they're both having bad years. They're both frustrated. I could see some fireworks when they play each other this year. So those are kind of the four I look forward to.
No doubt. I think the Astros-Royals one, I think also that kind of dates back to a couple of years back when the Royals came back in that series against the Astros and went on to make it into the World Series. So that kind of makes it sort of an interesting matchup to watch. And while it is a little weird of a pick when you're picking your favorite matchups, I totally get where you're coming from because when I think of that matchup now in my mind, it kind of is intriguing to me, even though the Royals are dog shit, which we'll get into in a minute. But so I like those picks. My picks were Rockies D-backs, like you said, Nats, Mets, Blue Jays, Rangers, and I have three more. Dodgers, Giants, just such an obvious one. I think that's probably the best rivalry in baseball right now. You can say the same about another matchup I have, Cardinals, Cubs. That's always fun to watch, that NL Central matchup of two teams that are at the top of that division every single season, always battling it out. Now the Cubs definitely have the upper hand there, but I think it's still fun to watch. And lastly, Red Sox, Cubs. We don't get to see it often, but we saw it this past week. It was fun to watch. It was a World Series atmosphere, and it was April. So I that's something I certainly hope that's the World Series this year. But
I heard that they at the game on Sunday before the game they had the 2016 Cubs World Series trophy and the '04 Red Sox. How can the Red Sox are so buddy with the Cubs?
yeah,
Like the Cubs won one World Series in like 100-something years. The Red Sox have been one of the best teams in baseball. Like I don't want to be talked about with the Cubs. Like we're
right.
a better franchise than the Cubs right now. I just don't get how these teams are so buddy when it really should be like a rivalry. We could see it in the World Series. I mean, obviously you have the Epstein connection and a Lackey and Lester, but I just don't get how the teams are so buddy when they never play each other ever.
I think it's just that, both fan bases have experienced at one point being the lovable losers, or I guess you could even say hateable losers in the Red Sox case, because there's a lot of people who just hate the Red Sox. But at the same time, they both have a history of just losing until they finally broke through and won. And I think both fan bases sort of look at each other and have that sort of respect because we've been through so much as a fan base. But I do agree with you. I wish it wasn't buddy because seeing a heated rivalry, Red Sox Cubs in the World Series, is every baseball fan's dream. So I hope it evolves into that when it comes down to it. But I think nowadays, in general, baseball's culture is very buddy, and it's tough to get teams to hate each other.
Yeah, it's like that in the NBA now too. It's like what happened to just like two competitive teams going at it and not being buddy, but being respectful of each other. Like some guy hits a big home run, he bat flips. You don't have to throw at his head the next pitch. Like he just got you. He just was better that time. So that's just
absolutely. Yeah, and I wish. I mean, guys like Lackey and Lester, as much as we love them on the Red Sox, I feel like in a way it could be spun into a rivalry with them because Lester, chose the Cubs over the Red Sox. Even though I believe that was the Red Sox front office fault. But a lot of people were pissed at Lester for that. And then you got Lackey, who's just a fiery guy, and he wants to kill the Red Sox when he faces them. I guarantee that. So you can almost spin it into it should be a rivalry. Anthony Rizzo was traded away from Boston. So, there's a lot of things that just kind of go back there that you can say, I wish this was a rivalry, and there's things that can turn into it.
I caught all three, parts of all three games in this series, and they were interviewing Chris Bryant's dad, who was a Red Sox farmhand.
Oh, yeah.
Every freaking game, it's like, we get it. His dad was a Red Sox farmhand. Like, people try to...
we get it. Chris Bryant has a dad. We get it.
Yeah, his dad played for the Red Sox. Like, whoop-de-doo. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, that was tough. A lot of NESN's coverage just bugs me. That's why if the game's on both MLB Network and NESN, I'll usually watch it on MLB Network. I'm not a big fan of NESN's coverage for Red Sox games, but it just seems very, almost like, hey, it's the Cubs. Cubs are in town. Let's talk to Chris Bryant's dad. Yay! Like, I'd rather just watch the actual game and, focus on that. But
yeah, I mean, John Lackey, I don't know if you saw that clip of him yelling at the umpire. I think it was during Saturday's game, and the umpire the umpire just ignored him. Like, I miss Lackey just yelling at the umpires. Like, you could see it within the first batter whether Lackey's going to be pissed at the strike zone or not. He'll start muttering to himself, yelling. I love that about John Lackey, though.
It's so fun to watch. I like Lackey. I'm not a huge Lackey guy by any means, but when he takes the mound and just starts yelling, I can't get enough. I cannot get enough of that. Don't love him as a player, but as a personality in the mound, it's electric to watch him. So we'll move on to our regular segments. Dud of the week. We'll start with that. I'll let you go first here because I have a feeling we might have the same one, but I'll let you go.
Oh, really?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I kind of took a different route on this, but I'll let you go and we'll see.
All right. My dud of the week. This guy got so much hype. He was the first pick in the draft. Atlanta Braves shortstop Dansby Swanson.
Okay, I almost picked him, but I didn't. We got different ones there.
Yeah, people were so hot on him. He came up late last season. He did okay. Wasn't a world beater, but this year he's been absolutely terrible. He's hitting 156. And not even that, he's got a 200 OBP, which is absolutely dog shit.
Terrible.
This guy was supposed to be the start, the Chipper Jones of this era for the Braves, and he has been absolutely terrible. So I don't know what the Braves are going to do with him. They have to help him out just because he has no idea what he's doing at the plate. Obviously, he plays solid defense, but that's not that hard. He always had that. It's just his bat has been so bad. he's been a negative on the field for them. So he's my dud of the week. Dansby Swanson, so much potential and hasn't lived up to one iota of it.
Yeah, I almost threw him in there too because he's a guy I picked for NL Rookie of the Year, and he's nowhere close to that. You could probably pick 10 guys, 10 NL rookies that are better than him right now. My dud of the week, I tried really hard to find someone who was more of a dud, who had more of a dud week. I couldn't do it. You could argue, I guess, Dansby Swanson, but I had to go with Noah Syndergaard. Just a dud week all around. The reason I threw him on here is because I know for a fact we're probably not going to have him as a dud ever again. So this was probably Syndergaard's worst week as a professional baseball player. And on my list, I have Syndergaard / Mets. I think the Mets organization as a whole should be thrown into this dud of the week. I think they just fell off a cliff in the past week. I think on the last podcast, we could have talked about them as, still being maybe a wild card team. I don't think they're going to sniff the wild card this year. As a backup, just in case you said Syndergaard and Mets, I had the Royals, who are on they have a 9-game losing streak coming into tonight. So those are my duds.
Yeah, I saw our boy Matt Strom has sort of figured it out, so good for him. I mean, he was a mental case, so much so that I thought he was going to block us on Twitter because we were chirping him, but he's kind of figured it out, but the Royals haven't figured it out. They've been terrible. And yeah, I think the whole Mets organization, like the logo of the Mets, should just be the dud of the week. They're a joke right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should classify the entire Mets organization because, again, it's not all Syndergaard's fault that this happened. Yes, he should have just been like, I'll have the MRI, we'll take care of this. But the Mets organization needs to take over and just be like, look, this is this is our situation that we're going to deal with. This isn't not up to you. So
yeah, how do the Mets not look at it as an investment? Like, protect your investment instead of just letting the kids run the asylum. Like, it's crazy.
Now, since we're talking about the Mets real quick and Syndergaard, and this has been a bad week for Syndergaard, I'm going to throw this out there like I do every time Syndergaard's name pops up. Nolan Arenado for Syndergaard at the trade deadline. All right, so we'll move on to don't call it a comeback. I'll go first for this one. I have a team, not a player, for this one. I couldn't really find any comeback players this week. I got the Yankees beating the Orioles. They were down 9-1 in the 6th to the Orioles. They came back and beat the Orioles 14-11 in the 10th. So, I mean, don't call it a comeback. The Yankees. And the Yankees are having this success. I think they're 15-8 right now, leading the AL East along with the Orioles. They're having this success without Gary Sanchez. And they have a struggling Greg Bird who doesn't even know what planet he's on when he's at the plate right now. That's scary. That is extremely scary. I think Severino, I don't think he's going to have the success all year. So I think him and the rest of that rotation is going to have its fair share of struggles. But that lineup, dude, that scares the shit out of me because the Yankees have that potential where their lineup can carry them all year and then just be thrown in the playoffs and then somehow, some way, ruin the Red Sox season.
Yeah, I mean, that's another matchup like I'll tune into. Yankees, Orioles at Yankee Stadium, because that's a home run derby because there's just balls flying out each way. Trumbo, Judge, Chase Henry's even hitting home runs. Chris Davis is hitting home runs. I'm a little nervous about the Yankees. I think their pitching will come back to earth. It's been unbelievable so far, starting pitching. So we'll have to see. They blew a game yesterday that they were up just because their bullpen stinks, their middle relief. So that's a good one. I have another game too. Phillies-Dodgers Saturday night. That was a sneaky good series this weekend. It was back and forth. The Phillies are actually played pretty hard versus a good Dodgers pitching staff. So Phillies were up 5-2 going into the bottom of the ninth. Puig, Bellinger, Justin Turner hit back-to-back home runs to tie it. And then Egon hits a walk-off single. I just thought it was classic Phillies giving up back-to-back home runs to tie the game in the bottom of the ninth. I mean, it doesn't get more Philly than that, I think.
That was definitely a tough look, but it was so expected. You know, if there's one team that's going to happen to, it's Philly. So neither of us picked players. That's interesting. So both don't call it comebacks. We got the Yankees and we got the Dodgers. That's interesting. That's the first time that's happened so far on this podcast. Lastly, we'll have when you're hot, you're hot. You'll go first, actually, because I just went first for that one.
Okay. I have a player for the Minnesota Twins, Miguel Sano. He's been absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. When you're hot, you're hot, I guess, for him. He's hitting 524, 3 home runs, 11 RBIs in his last seven games. And a big thing for Sano is like he strikes out a shit ton. Yeah. Like he's usually in the top 5, and he's not in the top 5 this year. He's like more like 8th or 9th. So that's a win for Sano. I think he's actually getting some plate discipline. He's swinging at good pitches because when he makes contact with the ball, the ball jumps off his bat more than almost any player in MLB. He has so much power. He always barrels it up. So Miguel Sano is hot right now.
Yeah, he is. He's another reason why. I mean, you gave me a pretty high win total for the Twins, but if Miguel Sano keeps it up, along with a few guys in that pitching staff, you never know. My when you're hot is Ryan Zimmerman. A little boring because we already covered how he's tearing it up, but I couldn't leave him off here because this past week has been unreal for Ryan Zimmerman. He has 11 home runs this year so far, 29 RBIs. We just finished April. He has 29 RBIs. He's batting .420 like you already mentioned, and his OPS is 1.345. If that's not a when you're hot candidate, then nobody is. So Ryan Zimmerman, he's leading the Nationals right now in pretty much every category. He's leading the NL in pretty much every category. He's overshadowing guys like Bryce Harper, Daniel Murphy, Trey Turner, Adam Eaton, who died this week. Just all the power to the world, like in the world, to Ryan Zimmerman because he has been a huge surprise this year. And he's my when you're hot, you're hot.
Yeah, he'll probably never be back here, so he better really cherish it being in the winner's circle here.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that pretty much wraps up this week's episode. You guys should definitely subscribe on iTunes. I think we're sort of hitting our stride now. We have some guests that we plan to have on in the coming weeks. We don't want to guarantee anything yet, but a little teaser there for you. Follow us on Twitter at Eephus Pod. We're killing it on there, posting a ton of videos, ton of content along with our episodes. We're not just posting our episodes on there. It's a good follow. So that's at Eephus Pod. Like us on Facebook. And Zach, unless you got anything else, I think that pretty much covers everything.
No, man. I'm good.
All right. We'll see you guys later.